False alarms, sewage problems, and a couple battles that were fought over nothing. History is quite unusual at times, apparently. Welcome back to Bumblebee. I am your host, Taylor McWaters. I'm so happy to be back healthy. That's nice. It's always fun. Here are the top 10 unusual events in history that sound totally fake, sound absolutely made up. Are they made up? I don't really know. Kicking off our list at number 10, the Field of the Cloth of Gold. Way too many words right off the hop. In 1520, King Henry VIII of England, he hosted a lavish birthday celebration for, well, himself, of course. He's a king, obviously. For himself, and a diplomatic summit with King Francis I of France. Two kings, one epic party. Here we go. The event took place in France and included elaborate feasts, jousting tournaments, okay, that's pretty distracting, and displays of wealth and power by both monarchs on both sides. Now, the summit aimed to strengthen the alliance between both England and France, of course, with the fun jousting happening in the corner. Again, so distracting at a banquet. But ultimately, it did little to resolve their long-standing conflicts. The Field of the Cloth of Gold is remembered as one of the most extravagant events of the Renaissance period, with each monarch trying to one-up the other the entire time. It turned into an absolute joke. One king would serve dolphin and the other king would come and serve swan. It was a lavish cook-off for 18 days straight. Yeah, the party lasted 18 days, so no one's lasting the entire time. Today, this 18-day party would have cost around $19 million, give or take a couple of swans. And dolphins? Monsters, absolute monsters. Number 9, safety coffins. Not to be confused with the safety dance, also quite fun. During the 18th century, there was a brief trend of designing safety coffins. Everybody thought they were the next Tony Stark. They wanted to make the coolest coffin. Weird brag. To get a patent on one of these bad boys, this was next level. They were made to prevent people from, being buried alive, but again, in style. These coffins were equipped with air tubes, bells, and even escape hatches, which would allow someone who was mistakenly thought to be dead to signal for help or even escape their box of death. Now, the thing is, many of these designs were very impractical or ineffective altogether. They were bull. These tubes were just a rat highway into your mouth while you were stuck in a coffin. It was horrible. God forbid you actually woke up in a coffin alive. Now you have to watch bugs and rats crawl out of this air tube until you actually did die. Some would say it's even worse than the original issue at hand. That's horrible. I'm itchy just thinking about that. Number 8, Andrew Jackson's pet parrot. I love animals. I had a bird for a hot minute there. Not the best animal in the house, but it's kind of fun. I don't know, he sucked at flying. Andrew Jackson, he was the 7th president of the United States, and he had a pet parrot named Paul. Pet parrot named Paul. There we go. It's a alliteration for my theater kids over at home there. The bird became famous for its foul language, which it had picked up from its owner, of course. Now, when Jackson died in 1845, his funeral was held in Tennessee. Now, Paul, the parrot, the loyal parrot, mind I remind you, he was present at the funeral and was reportedly making so much noise that it disrupted the proceedings. Now, according to the legend, Paul was eventually removed from the funeral after swearing loudly. They're like, yeah, get your little parrot feet, get out of here, fly, shoo. That's pretty amazing. A parrot getting kicked out for swearing, it sounds made up, but hopefully that one's true. That would break the tension for sure. I don't know. I can't help but get the giggles every time I'm at a funeral. I can't help it. Some historians believe this story was made up just to stain the president's history, but either way, I like it. I like to imagine a parrot being escorted out of a funeral, just like this, nice and calm, and then one brief let go at the end there. That's how you let go of a bird. You gotta go slow, and then there's that one moment of like, you have to do it, no turning back. Here he goes, he's gone. Number 7, animal court. Speaking of birds and parrots, these little mouthy things. Animal trials were a real legal practice that emerged in medieval Europe, and it lasted all the way until the 18th century, which is way too long for animals to be showing up in court. These trials involved pigs, cows, and even insects. Yeah, a ladybug took the stand and then just flew off at some point. These animals were charged and tried in court. The animals were often accused of crimes such as theft, taking one's life, and sometimes even witchcraft. Yeah, that's amazing. They were usually assigned a lawyer and a legal defense team, and the trials were conducted in the same way as human trials were, which is so funny. Real people had to wake up and go here. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall during one of these hearings. As long as I'm not the fly on the stand, we're all good. The verdicts of animal trials varied, but many animals were found guilty and then sentenced to death by hanging or burning. Again, imagine a praying mantis being hung in the middle of town square. Like, what? Who's going to watch this? Who's representing this? More importantly, The trials were often seen as a way for human beings to assert their dominance over the natural world, I guess, sure, and they were widely criticized by religious leaders and philosophers. Number 6, Lake Peigneur. In 1980, Louisiana's Lake Peigneur was accidentally drained after a drilling rig penetrated a salt mine right beneath it, just directly beneath it. The odds here, this was crazy. What a horrible surprise down below, my God. The drilling rig was owned by the Texaco Oil Company, and the accident was caused by of course, a miscalculation in the well's trajectory. As the drilling rig penetrated the mine, it created a hole that quickly grew in size, causing the lake to drain into the mine below. The lake drained like a massive bathtub. This event created a massive whirlpool that lasted for several hours. It pulled in trees, boats, and even a nearby drilling platform all into this watery vortex, like something out of Pirates of the Caribbean 3, or whatever one that was, where there's a massive whirlpool. It's haunting. It's the worst way to go. Remarkably, no human lives were lost in this disaster, which is so impressive. Today, Lake Peigneur has largely returned to its former state, although this time around it's now much smaller and shallower than it once was. Because, you know, it got drained. How terrifying is that? Number 5, the Great Stink. This one's fucking so funny. Where was this in Peaky Blinders? This would have been a great season. Everyone's just walking around plugging their nose. The Great Stink of London was a major environmental crisis that occurred in the summer, the real hot summer of 1858. Now at the time, the River Thames, which flowed through the heart of the city, it was heavily polluted with raw sewage, industrial waste, human shit, animal shit, so much shit. Pretty much everything and all horrible things you can imagine, all in this flowing hot soup of garbage. The hot summer weather made the problem 1,000 times worse, and it caused the river to emit a putrid odor that covered the entire city. It was just a blanket of stink and depression. The stench was so overwhelming that it disrupted business. It caused widespread illness and even forced Parliament to suspend its sessions. Yeah, it was so stinky, even Parliament's like, ew, no, we'll just talk later. Just go home. Everyone stop. The crisis prompted widespread public outcry, I would hope, and ultimately led to the construction of a new sewer system for the entire city. Thank God. I was really hoping for some sort of solution there. The new system was completed in the 1870s and dramatically improved public health in London by reducing the incidence of waterborne diseases such as cholera. Yeah, get rid of that, clean some things up. Yeah, maybe it'll help. It took 10 years to fix the sewage. How brutal is that? My God, 10 years. Number 4, closer to the heart. Oh, this is so fucked up. Back in 1822, the poet Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, OG writer, here we go. Well, one of her deep dark secrets was accidentally discovered. I would be haunted by this one if I found this. After the death of her husband, very sad, of course, yes, Mary kept his heart in a silk shroud in her desk. Like his actual real life heart, just wrapped up, little piece of him just tucked in that third shelf down. Just slam it shut, and there we go. The exact reason for this unusual act is not clear, but it's believed that Mary was deeply devoted to her husband and wanted to keep a part of him with her at all times. Or again, 3 cupboards down, just slammed in the back next to the Crayolas. The heart was eventually discovered by Shelley's son, who removed it from the desk, thank God, and then buried it with his father's body, away from the desk, like outside in the ground, something kind of normal. Again, being a fly on that wall, what does that conversation sound like? The son's like, hey, found something, I don't know, let's talk about it. Number 3, the Battle of Los Angeles. Seeing as the Pentagon had another leak recently, it's always fun when they leak stuff, let's talk about the biggest false alarm ever. Or was it? The Battle of Los Angeles, otherwise known as the Great Los Angeles Air Raid, it happened during World War II, right at the end of February 1942. This event, first of all, it took place only a few months after the Pearl Harbor attacks, so everybody was obviously, you know, immensely stressed out, to say the least. Something like 25 enemy aircraft was spotted flying over Los Angeles in the late hours of February 24th. So at that point, appropriately, air raids blasted off. Blackouts were then put in effect. This was not a drill. Or was it? We don't really know yet. Artillery fire, machine guns, anti-aircraft shells, all blasted off, shot pointed somewhere in the sky, hopefully to hit something. In total, around 1,400 shells were shot off. 2 people had heart attacks because of the noise. 5 people died in total from this retaliation, and it was all apparently a false alarm. A press conference was held by the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, and he called the incident war nerves, and that there was nothing actually flying above. Although now we think it was UFOs, so I don't know. What do you guys think it was? Nothing? Think it was UFOs? Do you think it was just war nerves? I think it was probably nothing. It was just nothing. Number 2, the Battle of the Stray Dog. Oh, love animals. Love when they just cause battles. That's great. The Battle of the Stray Dog was a bizarre incident that occurred in 1925 between Greece and Bulgaria. Now, it began when a Greek soldier was chasing a stray dog and he accidentally crossed the border just a little too far to the left. He crossed the border into Bulgaria, leading to a heated confrontation with Bulgarian troops. Now, the incident quickly escalated into this full-blown battle, again, with this dog standing in the middle, not knowing what it's caused, with artillery fire and thousands of troops on both sides running at each other. Now, the conflict lasted for several days before a ceasefire was eventually declared. Now, although relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, the Battle of the Stray Dog highlights the complex and often volatile nature of geopolitical tensions and the unpredictable events that can lead to armed conflicts, like say, I don't know, a stray dog being anywhere at the wrong time. So by the time the International Committee negotiated a ceasefire to clear up this obvious misunderstanding, 50 people had already lost their lives. So keep those leashes on, folks. You know, dog parks only, I guess. And finally, number 1, the dancing plague. This is the funniest thing ever. I'll talk about this until I go out, honestly. July 1518, one of the most bizarre events in medieval history went down. And it's horrible, but humans did not help this cause. Humans were just the worst here. The town of Strasbourg was calm, cool, and collect one summer back in 1518 until out of nowhere one woman began to dance uncontrollably in the streets. Others soon joined her and eventually there were over 400 people dancing the days away. Now it's really tragic here because this was not a good time. A good amount of people here lost their lives due to exhaustion alone. Like, it sounds like a fun thing. We think back to it, it's like, oh, the dancing plague. People started playing music. The authorities tried their best to help the situation, so they paid for musicians to perform for them while they were convulsing in the street. Again, not helpful here, guys. We need some medicine, maybe something else is going on. We don't need a guy with a banjo to come up and liven up the streets while 40 people are having seizures. Not really gonna help. This happened a few times in Europe as well, a few dancing plagues between the 14th and the 17th centuries, and we still don't know exactly what happened here. All we do know is that it was some sort of illness and that it was not like Step Up. It wasn't a dance circle, it wasn't cool, it wasn't sick, all right? We don't need a guy playing guitar. This was bad. This was like a sickness. Those are the top 10 unusual events in history that sound made up, but they totally did happen. Those were all very real, including the dancing plague. How wild is that? I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and I'll see you next time here on Bumblebee. Peace.